Hello, my friends. I hope everybody's good. Today, I will be going through the second of the six paramitas, also known as the six perfections. Yesterday, I did the first, which was generosity, the act of giving to others. And then today, I will be talking about ethical discipline. So that's what today's topic is. The first thing I'd like to share is a quote from Pabonka Rinpoche. I mentioned yesterday that Pabonka is the master that created the book Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, which is a Lamrim text. It's a graduated path to enlightenment, and it covers the whole entire Buddhist path. So Pabonka Rinpoche says, I'm quoting, "They say the perfection of ethics is to gain the abandonment of certain thoughts. That is, you reverse thoughts of harming others along with the basis of such thoughts, turning them into the thought of abandoning these actions. Complete familiarity with the abandonment becomes the perfection of ethics." So ethical discipline, the way I see it, is a series of rules and regulations we can follow to reduce the amount of harm that we do to other people or other living beings. Okay. So that was Pabonka Rinpoche. Togmi Zangpo, who is the author of the famous Tibetan text, 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas, says, if lacking discipline, one cannot accomplish one's own good, it is laughable to think of accomplishing the good of others. Therefore, to observe discipline without samsaric motives is the practice of a bodhisattva. So Togme is essentially saying, if you want to practice the Mahayana path of Buddhism, if you don't have discipline, you can't ascend yourself spiritually, let alone help others, right? And then Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche's commentary on Togme Zangpo's 37 practices says, as the Buddha said, in this decadent age, to maintain even one monastic vow for a day brings greater merit than to offer 1,000,000 Buddhas quantities of food, drink, canopies, lamps, and garlands as vast as the number of grains of the sand of the Ganges. I love the old analogies and metaphors the Buddha used. And then he goes on to say, perfect discipline is to keep the vows in a pure way with constant mindfulness, free from conceit or pride. In essence, discipline is to have a peaceful, self-controlled, and altruistic mind. So that was Togme Zangpo. And then Dilgo Khyentse sharing some information taken from his commentary. And then there's one more thing Dilgo said, which beautifully sums up ethical discipline, the second paramita. He says, there are three kinds of discipline to be practiced. The first is to give up all actions that harm either yourself or others. So you're essentially giving up harming. Second, undertake positive actions by practicing the six paramitas. Third, do everything possible to benefit others in their present and future lifetimes. So, and this is pretty much true of, I'm kind of taking from different traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. Togme Zangpo and Dilgo Khyentse are Nyingmapas from the Nyingma tradition. And then Pabonka Rinpoche is Gelugpa. And then I've got some quotes from Gampopa from the Kagyu tradition, or Kagyu, depending on who you talk to. Everybody has their own way of saying it. So anyway, I'm kind of pulling from these different traditions, but the one I just said from Dilgo summarizes it pretty much perfectly. There are three kinds of discipline. One, and I'm paraphrasing now, don't harm others. Two, undertake positive actions by practicing the six paramitas. Three, do everything possible to benefit others in their present and future lives. So I really like that summary. And then here's the way Poka Rinpoche categorizes the three categories of ethical discipline in his book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. Number one, the ethic of refraining from misdeeds. Pretty much the same as what Dilgo just said. Two, the ethic of gathering virtuous dharma. Three, the ethic of working for the sake of sentient beings. And then here's a couple quotes from Gampopa, the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, which is kind of his equivalent of a Lam Rim text, which takes you from kind of beginner all the way up to the highest levels of teaching. He says, what's the purpose of ethical discipline? On the other hand, one should keep moral ethics to establish sentient beings in what I lost track of my notes there. Okay. Without the practice of moral ethics, you will not meet the Dharma teachings. The Possessing Moral Ethics Sutra says, for example, a person without sight cannot see forms. Likewise, a person without moral ethics cannot see the Dharma teachings. For example, a person without feet cannot walk a road. Likewise, a person without moral ethics cannot be liberated. And then a quote from the Letter to a Friend, which was Nagarjuna's well-known text. It says, just as the ground is the basis for motion and stillness, so moral ethics is the basis of all excellent qualities. When you have moral ethics, it is like fertilized ground. On that basis, all the crops of good qualities will grow. So you start to get this sense that the foundation of the whole path is moral ethics. And if you don't have moral ethics, you really cannot ascend up the path of being a bodhisattva, becoming a Buddha, letting go of all your afflictions. How can we let go of our afflictions if we're not willing to follow moral ethics? In my, the way I see this is it's another manifestation of love and compassion. These ethical, when I first started practicing, I thought, ethical discipline, that's boring. That was the way I thought, oh, that's boring. I don't want to study ethical discipline. Now I look at it as a clear manifestation of love and compassion. The Buddha's love manifested in these rules that will help us make sure we don't harm others. And that's lovely. It's beautiful, right? Now, Gampopa and his Jewel Ornament of Liberation breaks the first point, which is avoiding non-virtue, or how did Pavonka say? Pavonka called it the ethic of refraining from misdeeds, and Dilgo called it give up all actions that harm yourself or others. So Gampopa breaks that first point into two. There's common moral restraint. That's number one. And then number two is uncommon moral restraint. So under common moral restraint, he says first, the common one refers to the 7 types of pratamoksha vows. So now we're getting into monk and nun vows and layperson vows. So he said first, the common one refers to the 7 types of pratamoksha vows. The Bodhisattva Bhumis says, with the pratamoksha precepts, there are 7 ways to take precepts perfectly. Those are bhikshuni, and I'm probably mispronouncing some of this. Shik, Samana, Shramanera, Shramanarika, Upasaka, and Upasika. These are divided into layperson and renounced. They all restrain from harming others. The pratamoksha vows provide restraint only for one's benefit, but the bodhisattva vows restrain themselves for others' benefit. So here we're really looking at, when you think about these vows, again, when I first started practicing, I didn't appreciate or comprehend the purpose of vows. The purpose of these vows, the way I see it, is twofold, right? Whether you're taking like 1-day vows during a retreat, if you're a layperson, or you're a monk or a nun taking lifetime vows, or you're taking the bodhisattva vow for a day, whatever it is, it protects you because you're not harming anybody. Therefore, you're not accumulating negative karma. That's number one. Number two, it protects others because by taking these vows, you're not going to engage in activity that would otherwise harm others. So it's really quite beautiful. So as I mentioned, Gampopa has two categories of that first vow of non-harming others. The first was common, the other was uncommon. The uncommon, according to Gampopa, are these what are called root downfalls, which is the cause that will cause one to be reborn in the hell realms. Okay, so when we get into the uncommon moral restraint, these are things you want to avoid at all costs. And I'm not going to go through the whole list because it's pretty lengthy, but just to name a couple of these, he says that these are considered root downfalls that can cause one to be reborn in the hell realms. I won't go through the whole list, but here's a couple. Stealing the wealth of the triple gem is a root downfall. So now we're talking about stealing from the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, which are, temples, retreat organization, et cetera. So that's a big no-no. Number 2, forbidding the precious Dharma. The sage has said that this is the second root downfall. So we don't want to do anything to prohibit or block people from sharing the Dharma, because the Dharma has the ability to give so much relief to the suffering of living beings. So that's certainly not something you'd want to do because it would harm a lot of people. Another word he says is seizing the robes, beating or imprisoning a monk who has renounced his vows, or causing a monk to renounce his vows. So those are considered root downfalls. Another one is destroying cities and towns. These are the root downfalls spoken of by the Buddha. So in the modern day, we've seen recently where people protest and then it gets ugly and they start to destroy cities and towns. I never realized that that's considered a root downfall. So that's important to be very, very mindful of our thought, speech, and action, because some of these things can really propel you into a negative future life and negative existence in this life, having really negative experiences during your present life. Lastly, he says, expressing one's good qualities in order to get wealth, honor, and praise, and to abuse others. My teacher, Geshe Jimpa Sonam, is really a beautiful master. He's I've watched him over the years. He takes a very disciplined approach to not requiring donations, not pushing for donations. I see a lot of retreats. I see a lot of Dharma teachers that charge what one might call exorbitant fees to attend Dharma teachings. And I know everybody may have different perspectives on this, but I really believe that and this is my opinion, doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but I feel pretty strongly that, and I'm really following my teacher, Geshe-la. I feel strongly that Dharma should be given freely. I've been working on writing a book, and I'm kind of considering either giving it away for free, or some very, very nominal price. The reason for that is I don't have any interest in using the Dharma, which is something so precious, which I look at as our birthright, because I believe the Buddha gave this to us. So I don't personally want to ever charge for the Dharma. Now, to be clear, some places do retreats and they say, of course, if you want to give us a donation, that's wonderful, because a lot of these monasteries or centers, they exist based on the donations of practitioners. So on that level, I think that's beautiful to engage in generosity and donate to a monastery or a retreat center. I just don't like the idea of it being mandatory, and this one says expressing one's good qualities in order to get wealth, honor, and praise, and to abuse others. To me, it's kind of a slippery slope if these organizations are charging these exorbitant fees to attend practices and teachings. I don't know. I think it's ethically ambiguous, in my opinion. So it's very unclear as to what the right thing to do is. So I kind of err on the side of never trying to charge for the Dharma, never trying to make it hard for somebody to get it. But again, that's just my opinion. So to summarize the topic of ethical discipline, just one more time, rereading what Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche said, because as I mentioned, I think it's a beautiful summary of the second paramita, which is a paramita is the perfection. There are 6 paramitas on the Bodhisattva path, and the second paramita is ethical discipline, and Dilgo summarized it as follows. There are 3 kinds of discipline to be practiced. Number 1, give up all actions that harm either yourself or others. Number 2, undertake positive actions by practicing the 6 paramitas. Number 3, do everything possible to benefit others in their present and future lives. So in closing, this is going to be a pretty short one. In closing, my synthesis or kind of the way I would see this as a pith explanation of this is it's a manifestation of love and compassion. In Buddhism, love is the wish for others to be happy. Compassion is the wish for others not to suffer. So love is very different than the Western idea of love, which is probably more attachment and craving and desire and wanting somebody. Love in the Buddhist tradition is unattached, a simple wish for others to be happy, right? So I kind of look at ethical discipline as the foundation. It's like when you think about building a home, if you build a home on sand that's unstable, your house can sink, right? In Southern California, where I lived for several years, if you build your house near the edge of a cliff, when it rains, they have these mudslides and the cliffs start to sink. And the erosion goes further and further away from the beach and inland, and your home can start to sink or fall down a cliff. So they have these things called retaining walls. That's kind of the way I look at this ethical discipline is it's the foundation upon which we can build our entire spiritual practice. And if that foundation is built strongly on this understanding that if I follow these certain rules, I will not harm others, then it has the potential to do a great deal of benefit for others. So again, for me, this second paramita of ethical discipline is really just a manifestation of love. If you're practicing the Bodhisattva vehicle, which is also known as the Mahayana, your whole purpose in life is to become a fully enlightened Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. That's the whole purpose of practicing Buddhism or practicing the Dharma. So if you look at it from a Bodhisattva perspective or a Mahayana perspective, these ethical discipline rules are solely for the purpose of protecting others, nurturing them, enhancing their lives, and really shining a light inward on our ethical behavior to understand, are there things that we might do that could harm others, and how do we stop those things, right? So I think those are great. And I did actually have a few more things that I had highlighted that I kind of liked from Gampopa. He actually gives some examples. And again, if you don't practice the Dharma, these might be things that you don't commonly think about. So Gampopa says in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, he says, after perfectly taking the Bodhisattva's vow of moral ethics, accumulate virtues through your body, speech, and mind in order to achieve enlightenment. Briefly, these are called the accumulation of virtues. Some people call this the accumulation of merit, accumulation of virtues. In other words, you're cultivating positive qualities that's going to create good karma for us. So he says, the Bodhisattva Bhumis says, so he's quoting a text, maintaining and sustaining the Bodhisattva's morality, joyfully making effort in hearing, contemplating, and meditating, performing service for and honoring all the teachers, helping and nursing sick people, giving properly and proclaiming good qualities, rejoicing in others' merit and patience, having patience when others look down on you, dedicating virtue towards enlightenment and saying aspiration prayers, making offerings to the triple gem, which is the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and making efforts for the virtuous teachings, sustaining introspection, recollecting the Bodhisattva's training, protecting the Bodhisattva's training with vigilant awareness, protecting all the sense doors and moderately eating food. Protecting all the sense doors is practicing discipline. And when you see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, you see a beautiful person, you might lose all memory of what you were doing before, and you're chasing this beautiful person. And you can, when you're in that state of grasping and craving and desire and wanting, you could harm a lot of people. So the idea is it's called sense restraint. So he's calling it guarding the sense doors, making effort in meditation practice without sleeping too early in the evening or too late in the morning. I'm bad about going to sleep late and waking up late. That's one of my own issues. I'm a night person. Attending spiritual masters and authentically holy people, investigating your own mistakes and purifying them. In this way, practicing these good qualities, protecting and increasing them are called the moral ethics of accumulating virtues. So I really like that. And then another thing that he said, just quoting from Gampopa once again, engaging in the conduct of bodhisattvas says, now, while there is freedom to act, I should always present a smiling face and cease to frown and look angry. I should be a friend and counsel of the world. I read this earlier and I thought, what a beautiful quotation. Just smile. How often do we get so serious during our day about one thing or the other, something we think is so important, and we get angry? Maybe we're angry at somebody, or we're depressed or upset or scared or anxious, and we tense up and our face gets really serious. But what about if you just smile? Just smile, right? And then that smile can emanate love to other people, can make you feel good. And so we should always, he says, I should always present a smiling face and cease to frown and look angry. I should be a friend and counsel of the world. What a simple yet powerful quote. He also says, and when beholding someone with my eyes, thinking, I shall fully awaken through depending on this being, I should look at them with an open heart and love. I really like this because dependence upon sentient beings is a teaching that's given pretty pervasively throughout Buddhism, which is that, okay, one unique quality of Buddhism is that each one of us have what's called Buddha nature. That means we can become a Buddha. This is so different than almost every other religion that has a quote unquote God. And you pray to the God and you hope that he or she makes you whole, but you really don't have a lot of say in the matter. Buddhism is totally different. It's like a meritocracy. Buddhism teaches you cause and effect. If you create the causes for happiness, you will be happy. If you create the causes for Buddhahood, you will become a Buddha. And I find that to be absolutely beautiful. So here he says, when beholding someone with my eyes, thinking, I shall fully awaken through depending upon this being, I should look at him with an open heart and love. Talking about awakening and dependence upon a being is to say that our ability to become Buddhas is purely dependent on living beings, because the only way to get to Buddhahood, according to the Mahayana Buddhism, is through compassion. The Mahayana vehicle of Buddhism has two wings: the wing of wisdom, which is intelligence of the true nature of reality, and the wing of compassion, which some people call method. Okay, so the wing of compassion, the only way, if a bird flies, they need both wings, right? And that compassion wing is really the 6 paramitas, which we're going through. So I love this, that he mentions that our ability to ascend spiritually and become Buddhas is dependent on sentient beings. Some masters even say, and when you first hear this, some people are like, what? But I'll just say it. Some masters say sentient beings are more important than the Buddha because sentient beings are the way that we are going to cultivate patience. They're the way we're going to cultivate generosity. They're the way we're going to cultivate ethical discipline. Without sentient beings, without somebody pushing you a little bit and making you upset, you don't have a chance to practice patience. Without somebody saying the wrong thing to you and giving you a chance to let go of the anger that would naturally arise, you don't have a chance to improve the root cause of the anger, which is that obscuring affliction that happens when we repeat this behavior. Again and again, we keep repeating this behavior, and that's what causes the affliction. So anyway, the point is, the fact that he mentioned that Buddhahood is dependent upon sentient beings is really important. Another one, he says, when moving, I should desist from inconsiderately and noisily moving around chairs and so forth, as well as from violently opening doors. I should always delight in humility. I really like this one because now we're talking about being mindful. When we go throughout the world, being gentle, opening, just really everything we do, doing it methodically, knowing we're doing it, and being graceful, not slamming doors. And, you know, if you practice meditation and mindfulness for a while, and then you're around people that are really unmindful and they slam stuff around and they don't have any grace, it becomes quite obvious that somebody is moving without grace and mindfulness. So I really like this one. And being around somebody that's really graceful and thoughtful and careful about what they do can actually bring joy to people, and it can calm you down just by being around somebody like that, which is really special. One more, actually maybe a couple more. According to the Moon Lamp Sutra, the faults of harsh words are whatever one sees to be another's mistake, do not declare it as a mistake. You will receive the result of whatever actions you take. So in other words, speaking about the negativities of others is strongly discouraged because it doesn't produce a lot of benefit. If you do it in a very, very loving way, then perhaps that can actually be quite helpful. But if you're doing it out of jealousy or rage, it's not beneficial. Another one says the instructions on the non-production of all phenomena sutra says, one who talks about the downfall of a bodhisattva will be far from reaching enlightenment. By talking about another's mistake through jealousy, one will be far from enlightenment, and so forth. Therefore, one should avoid idle talk and harsh words. The way to use pure speech, which is another sutra, in engaging in the conduct of bodhisattvas, it says, when talking, I should speak from my heart and on what is relevant, making the meaning clear and the speech pleasing. I should not speak out of desire or hatred, but in gentle tones and in moderation. How beautiful is that? We're talking about speaking in gentle tones, which benefits others. Impure actions of the mind. Avoid craving, gain, and honor, and attachment to sleep, sloth, and so forth. The faults of craving, gain, and honor are mentioned in the sutra, requested with extreme sincerity. Maitreya bodhisattvas should investigate and understand that attachment to gain and honor, just to be clear, gain is material gain. So attachment to gain and honor is like a good reputation, will produce desire. One should understand that gain and honor will produce hatred, should understand that gain and honor will produce ignorance, should understand that gain and honor will produce deceit, should understand that all the Buddhas disapprove of gain and honor, should understand that gain and honor will destroy the root of virtues, should understand that gain and honor are like a deceitful harlot, and so forth. All right, that's it. I'm finally done. It's funny because whenever I start sharing these words of wisdom, I say, oh, I'm almost done. And then I get off on a tangent. So this is a exposition on ADD. as much as it is an exposition on Dharma teachings. All right, so in Buddhism, we always dedicate the merit of anything we do to all living beings. So anything positive we do, whether it's an act of generosity or kindness or helping a friend, anything at all that you do that is um, rooted or based upon love and compassion for others. Once you do that activity, you can dedicate it with the wish that everybody receives the benefit, the beneficial karma that you just created. So, as a result of this brief teaching today, I dedicate the merit of this teaching to all sentient beings. May all living beings become Buddhas in one lifetime. May suffering be completely eradicated. May all sickness and injury be healed. May all of the fearful uh, receive a protector. And most of all, most importantly, may each of us be imbued with love, compassion, and harmony. And may we be protectors of other living beings. So I dedicate the merit of this teaching. Thank you all so much. I love you all, sending hugs. Please have a wonderful day. And I'll be coming on soon with the third paramita, maybe in the next day or two, which is patience. So the first paramita we did yesterday is generosity. The second paramita we did today